What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Fantasy Philosophers. I'm one of your hosts, Dustin. You can follow me on Twitter at FPS_Dustin. Got my man Patrick over here with me. He is at FPS_Patrick. We have a joint page, Fantasy Philosophers, at Fantasy Philoso1. That'll be all over here. Follow us on Twitter. Since you're here in the video, make sure you comment, like, and subscribe. But enough of that. We're back with another episode here. We're in the middle of our Breakout candidate series. We are in the middle of the AFC, and today we are going to talk about the AFC South. So we're talking about breakout candidates, guys that we think can outperform their ADP, their current ADP. Now we are still just into July, so that has some room to change, but it shouldn't get too crazy before August. And again, we are focusing on redraft here. So thanks for following along. Thanks for watching all our previous episodes. Let's jump right in here and talk about the Indianapolis Colts and breakout candidates that we have on the Colts. So for me, I got to stay on brand. I went real heavy with the tight ends.
I knew it.
I went real heavy with the tight ends in our NFC divisions, and I haven't talked about one yet, I don't think, in the AFC. So here we go. Jack Doyle.
It's a good pick, though.
Breakout candidate. Yeah. So Jack Doyle. Last year, he finished as tight end 15. But I feel like his situation has upgraded this year. And he's being drafted around tight end 18. So he's going where he finished last year. But let's not forget, 2 years ago, Jack Doyle finished as a top 7 tight end. He got paid. We had some quarterback turnover. Most you guys should know that Andrew Luck said see ya and stepped out. But I think that Phillip Rivers is going to be better than Teddy Bridgewater. We also have to take into account that Eric Ebron is now gone. They replaced him with Trey Burton, who does not scare me at all. He's just a guy. He's a jag. They also got
rumors that they actually plan on using him as a fullback.
Okay.
Anywho, sorry.
Cool.
Just random.
I mean, Trey Burton has been kind of a thing in fantasy circles for a few years now, and every year is just, for fantasy purposes. So I expect that to continue, to be honest. That's just how I feel about it. If you have some evidence of something maybe going differently, feel free to @ me on Twitter and we can talk about it.
Same.
But that whole offense in general got some upgrades. They've got one of the best offensive lines, which means they're probably not going to ask him to stay in and block as much as some other tight ends in the league. They added a really talented wide receiver on the outside, who I expect to make some sort of immediate impact. I'm really big on Michael Pittman Jr. They added Jonathan Taylor. So, I mean, I don't hate Marlon Mack, but I expect them to have a better running game. We already talked about Phillip Rivers being an upgrade over Teddy Bridgewater, but let's talk about how much of an upgrade. Sorry, not Teddy Bridgewater. Jacoby Brissett. I don't know what I'm thinking. Jacoby Brissett. So Rivers, yeah.
But TGIF
for sure. So yeah, let's talk about how much better I think Phillip Rivers could be than Jacoby Brissett. And these are just some real basic numbers, not a deep dive into anything. But last year, the Colts, as an offense, had 3,300 passing yards. Well, in the last 10 seasons, Rivers has had 4,200 yards or more in 9 out of 10 of those seasons. And last year, with the Chargers, he gave Hunter Henry 6 targets a game. So he averaged 6 targets a game to Hunter Henry. If Jack Doyle gets those 6 targets a game, average, so there's some games where he's going to see 10. He's proven that he can be a playmaking tight end. I'm not expecting him to, break into the upper echelon, top 3 type of thing. But I think tight end 5 is probably his ceiling. And we've already seen him finish as a tight end 7. For him to go at tight end 18, 151 overall, I think is criminal. And if you punt on tight end like I often do, this is a guy that I'm scooping up every chance I get at the back end of drafts, because I feel like we're at the very least, going to get a safe floor. So Jack Doyle, that's my guy. Team tight end. Gotta represent the tight ends here. So Jack Doyle's my guy to outperform his ADP, going as tight end 18, only 2 years removed from a tight end 7 finish. For me, the way I draft especially, gotta get him.
Yeah, great pick. I already knew that's who you were going to take for the Colts. I consider you the tight end whisperer at this point. So I had to go a different direction. My breakout candidate, Paris Campbell. So we're talking about a guy with second-round draft capital who unfortunately had an injury-plagued rookie year. He seems to be somewhat forgotten with the recent drafting of Pittman. But let's look into Campbell and his workout metrics and a few other things that I think will shed some light on why people should be much higher on him than they currently are. 40-yard dash, 4.31. As a wide receiver, he's in the 100 percentile. Speed, got it. Check.
Speed kills.
Yup. Speed score. I know I've gone in, more detail in prior episodes about what these metrics are and how they're calculated. Just to avoid repeating this over and over, for anyone who doesn't know, all you have to do, go to playerprofiler.com. You can type in any player's name, pull up their profile. Right there at the top right, it's going to say workout metrics. You can click on them and they break it down for you. So just wanted to put that out there. Speed score for Paris Campbell, 97th percentile. It's mentioned that 110 is considered extraordinary for a wide receiver, and he came in at 117.2. And next, we have burst score. Now, real briefly, burst score essentially uses vertical and broad jump distances to measure zero inertia explosiveness, which I find very interesting. And Paris Campbell, 97th percentile.
And that's
so
physics,
we're talking
man. You can't argue with science.
Speed bursting. So he's picking up speed real quick and then just explosiveness to top it all off. Wow. What a profile. So beyond that, currently, as of today, he's going in the mid-15th as wide receiver 65. Again, I just have to emphasize, it seems like he didn't do much his rookie year. He dealt with multiple injuries. It seems like he just completely was forgotten about by most in the fantasy community, but don't let that be you. In week 4 of last season, ab strain, required surgery, was out 3 games. Week 10, hand fracture, again had surgery, missed 4 games. Week 14, foot fracture, ended the season. What a rough first year. But, that's baked into the ADP. Take that value. The upside is just tremendous here. A couple other things. Back on May 27th, Colts insider Jim Aiello, and I apologize, Jim, if I pronounced your last name incorrectly. But anyway, he's a well-known beat writer and quote-unquote Colts insider. He was quoted, he quoted Paris as saying that he's 100% and has been running routes at full speed for the last 2 months. Take it for what it's worth. It's someone saying that someone told them something, hearsay, but when someone has, a really good reputation when it comes to journalism, especially in the sports scene, you figure out who to listen to and who to kind of take what they say with a grain of salt. So that's that. And let's look at just the overall situation for Campbell coming into the 2020 season. So last year he ran 47.9% of his routes from the slot. And the Colts coach has fairly recently, for that matter, come out and has said that he will play more in the slot this season.
That's the perfect situation for him.
Well, let's remember who's at quarterback this year. Again, Phillip Rivers, who not only loves tight ends, but he also loves those slot guys. So, I don't want to compare or set the expectation that Paris Campbell is or will be what Keenan Allen has been. But let's just take a look at the past 3 seasons and the production from Keenan Allen playing slot with Phillip Rivers. This past season, 149 targets, 104 receptions, 1,199 yards, 6 touchdowns. Amazing. 2018, 136 targets, 97 receptions, 1,196 yards, and again, 6 touchdowns. Taking that all day too. 2017, 159 targets, 102 receptions, 1,393 yards, and once again, 6 touchdowns. If you're playing the slot receiver role in an offense that has Phillip Rivers under center, the opportunity should certainly be there. And, based on what he showed in college, and to be frank, just based on his athletic profile alone and athleticism, Paris Campbell is primed for a huge season while everyone is sleeping on him. So be sure to stay woke. Last but not least, I just want to touch on this real quick because I know a lot of people are just like, Phillip Rivers is so terrible. Oh my God, did you see how he was throwing? Look, let's look at this real quick. So per PFF.com, at the end of last season, the Chargers O-line, they ranked number 29 out of the 32 teams.
Yeah, they weren't good.
In fact, the last time they had a team pass blocking grade ranked above 26 was in 2014.
Whew.
Terrible. The man was running back there for his life. He's not a mobile quarterback.
He has a quick release.
He
wasn't running
always
nowhere,
had
dude.
that. Well, he's always had that odd throwing motion, which I keep hearing people go back to. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's done that his whole career. That's how he learned to throw a football. He didn't have the best season, but it wasn't just him. And going back to what you said about the Colts being one of the best O-lines in the NFL, they may be the best with the unfortunate
they're definitely
injury
top 3
to the number 1 rated guard in the league. I'm drawing a blank on the name, but
Quentin Nelson?
Maybe, but the
on the
Eagles
Colts?
guard, he was rated as the number 1 overall guard in the NFL.
Yeah, Quentin Nelson.
Sounds right.
He's a monster. Watch his film. Pancake after pancake.
After that unfortunate news, I would put the Colts there at 1. Phillip Rivers, he had a rough year last year. He did. But prior to last season, he's just one of those guys that's not real flashy. He's not a sexy pick in fantasy, but he's someone that's always been reliable.
Blue-collar quarterback.
Especially when it comes to not missing games. If you're interested, pull up his career and look and see how many games he's missed. I'll let you look into that on your own. But I just wanted to put all that out there. I'm not worried about Phillip Rivers just being completely washed up. Is he in his prime? Absolutely not. but he's going to have all the time in the world to sit back there and focus in on the slot receiver and the tight end, which to date, history has shown those are his top two options when it comes to the pass game. Paris Campbell, go get him.
Yeah, man. I'll add something real quick. One, player profiler has his best comparable to Santana Moss. I loved Santana Moss when he was in the league. Excellent slot receiver. Additionally, I think we're going to see a lot of similarities between like the Ravens and the Colts. They're going to hammer you with the run. And if you stop it or they feel like taking a shot, you're going to get play action. You're going to have to roll coverage to TY, right? You can't just let TY run free. So that means Paris Campbell's probably getting, single coverage or minimal safety help because it's going to be focused on TY. And I'm also going to tie Jack Doyle into this. Tight ends feast on play action passes. So I expect to see a lot of that type of stuff, a lot of big plays off of the play action. Frank Reich's a smart guy, and he's going to use what they've got. So, I was high on Paris Campbell last year coming in as a rookie. He was grabbing him in startups. He's just one of those Ohio State receivers, right? And it's kind of like the Steelers. When the Steelers draft a receiver, you pay attention. When an Ohio State receiver goes into the league, pay attention. They've been pretty good. So that's all I'll say about it. But I like Paris Campbell too, a lot. I think we'll see him kind of take a step forward this year, and that's not saying much because last year he didn't do a whole lot. But especially in Dynasty, like as TY ages, I really like Paris Campbell to complement Michael Pittman for sure.
Yeah, definitely. TY, I hope he's back to 100% and being his old self.
If he is, he's undervalued in drafts too.
Correct. I just find it interesting. We just have that rookie hype. It's in full effect. Michael Pittman hasn't played a single NFL game, and he's being drafted well before Paris Campbell is even being considered. So even though he didn't do much in his rookie year, I still count that as experience. I mean,
for sure.
Face injuries, it's rough. Assuming he is in fact 100% healthy, I see him catching a lot of people off guard and reminding everyone real quick who he is and what he does, but only time will tell.
For sure, man. I like the pick. I like him.
All right. So moving right along, let's go ahead and dive into old Jacksonville, the Jaguars. Jacksonville Jaguars. This one was easy for me. Gardner Minshew. Yeah, Gardner Minshew. What a story, first of all. For those of you who somehow don't know, Google him. I'll let you read about it. But, man, what a story. But let's take a look at what he did last year. So, for starters, the Jaguars as a team, they ranked number 10 for team pass plays per game. Based on the current state of their defense, I see that only going up this year. I mean, I'm not saying that they're not going to run the ball because they do have Leonard Fournette, who is a workhorse back. I just don't see them being in many leads during games, if ever in a game. So I see a ton of pass attempts. So just to look into where Minshew ranked at the quarterback position, of course, in some specific categories, it just really speaks volumes. So red zone attempts, number 15. Play action completion percentage, number 6.
Love that.
And what's really strange is for some crazy reason, they did not run much play action last year. Well, I bet they do this year. Let's see. Deep ball completion percentage. He was number 5 in the
Yeah.
whole league. Tell me you already knew that. There's no way. Anyone.
Oh.
You might have.
I love Gardner Minshew.
You might have. But
which is why
anyone
I've
watching, if you already knew that, let us know. Salute to you. Because when I pulled that up, I had to rub my eyes and make sure both my contacts were in. Because I was surprised.
It's one of the reasons I've been gobbling shark up everywhere I can.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know, kind of the more I think about it, it's like, okay, but just, I don't know, something about just seeing that number 5 there for Gardner Minshew of all people. It was just like, whoa, okay. Anywho, dropped passes. Number 3. So
Didn't know that.
in the whole league, the people that he threw the ball to, they have the 3rd most drops in the whole league. Think of what could have been if they were, say, middle of the pack instead of number 3. Wow. Thought that was interesting also. And something that seems to kind of go unnoticed, but as far as carries from the quarterback position, he's ranked number 6. Red zone carries, number 11. Rush yards for the quarterback position, he ranks number 5.
Definitely an underrated scrambler.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And the fact that I don't recall if he scored a rushing touchdown. He may have gotten in there for one. I apologize that I don't have that in front of me, but based on his rushing stats, you would think it was a lock for 3 to 4 touchdowns. So I see some positive regression coming in that category for sure. Let's see. Rising star and DJ Shark, you touched on it. Guy just kind of came out of nowhere, took the league by storm. He had some inconsistent weeks, but extremely young. Him and Minshew seem to have great chemistry. Things are looking bright. And also their new addition that they recently drafted, Laviska Shenault, I think that that's going to help the offense overall quite significantly, just based on how versatile he is and the fact that he can play, all these different positions, whether it's receiver, running back, wildcat. I mean,
hit him on the jet sweep.
Tight end at that.
Yeah.
This guy could play any skill position on offense for them, and that's a huge weapon, and you have that Swiss Army knife type of player that no one knows what to expect when he's lined up somewhere. That's huge. Minshew, he's going in the early 10th, which that tells me that there are quite a few people who are not sleeping on Minshew. But even there, I mean, it's well worth it. It's well worth it just based on how much passing they'll be doing this season, along with how much he runs the ball. Easy breakout. Gardner, the stash Minshew, go get him.
Minshew mania. I almost picked Minshew. I really like him, and I have since I kind of first saw him play last year. What really impresses me is he seems to have the processing already, right? Not only that, but he senses pressure and is he's not going to burn you or anything like a Lamar Jackson, but he's very agile in the pocket and has fantastic pocket presence and moves around in there to create more time. But at the same time, he's scanning downfield, which is, that's what you want.
Great instincts. And the fact that he was a 6th-round draft pick, wow, and what a hit.
He's not gonna blow you away with his arm strength. Like he's not a Patrick Mahomes, but the way he processes the game, he knows his limits. I love it, man. He's more than a game manager. He's not going to be Patrick Mahomes, Deshaun Watson type of guy, but you know, I think he's got potential to be kind of that next tier guy outside of your like absolute must-have elites for fantasy purposes anyway.
Yeah, and for those who, for whatever reason, are still playing in a one quarterback league, for starters, make sure put it to a vote. I highly recommend changing to Superflex. But that being said, you can wait on Minshew in a one quarterback, and it wouldn't surprise me to see him end as a high-end QB2, possibly fringe QB1, just based on how much volume they're going to have, just based on how they're projected to do as a team when it comes to wins and losses this season. Yeah. And then the fact that he's rushing the ball and I guess just him not finding the end zone, I didn't even really notice that. And I thought I was on him. And then I saw that and I'm like, okay, I need nothing else. Yep, I'll take that. So where he's going, steal, major upside, grab him.
Word. Well, for my guy, I might stir the pot a little bit because this is a guy who's going, I guess you would say, rather high in drafts. Leonard Fournette, right? I think he's being disrespected.
He is.
The man finished RB7 last year and only scored 3 touchdowns, and finished RB7.
Crazy.
I fully expect regression to the mean as far as the number of touchdowns, right? I'm expecting more. And I've already heard people saying, how are people expecting Leonard Fournette to do the same again? He's got Jay Gruden. Jay Gruden brought over Chris Thompson. He's not going to throw Fournette the ball. I don't care because I expect the touchdown regression to offset the reception regression, right? So I fully see a top 10 RB finish in his season next year. Now, I agree with you. They probably aren't going to win a ton of games next year, but they didn't win a ton of games last year. And Leonard Fournette finished RB7 with 3 touchdowns. So why can't he do it again? Why not? I think we've seen that Jay Gruden has a pretty good run game. Concept, scheme-wise, he blocks stuff up well. The Grudens are known as kind of offensive gurus. So I know there's arguments out there. Well, the only reason Fournette was a top 7 back last year was volume, because he did get a lot of volume and he wasn't that efficient. He did get a lot of receptions too.
A ton.
Yeah, but I expect him to score like 7 or 8 touchdowns probably this year instead of 3. He might even score 10. There's nobody else on the roster who's gonna get red zone carries over Fournette, in my eyes anyway, right? So
yeah, I can't imagine.
I can't either. So yes, I expect them to lose targets, but I really honestly truly believe it's going to be offset by more touchdowns. I expect him to be helped by Minshew being in his second year, being the unquestioned starter. You already touched on it. Him and Shark have a chemistry. They both took leaps and bounds forward last year. They added Laviska Shenault, who is only going to make things easier on the offense because, to me, Laviska Shenault is like a little bit more of a freak athlete, a freak athletic version of Percy Harvin, if that makes any sense, because Percy Harvin was ridiculous in his own.
I like that comp.
Right?
Comp, like a jumbo size Percy Harvin.
Like a big ass Percy Harvin. Okay. Yeah. So, you have to honor him on all the weird gadget stuff they're going to do, like jet sweeps and screen fakes and all that stuff. But at the same time, Gruden's also going to find ways to get him the ball in weird ways like that. So I think it's just going to help all around everyone in the offense having a playmaker like that on the field. And I think, a guy that finished RB7 last year while only scoring 3 touchdowns, but he's going as RB19, RB20, sometimes even later. I just feel like that's a crazy amount of disrespect for the man, and I'll take that value. who else are you going to take there that's going to have the floor but also the ceiling as Fournette? Nobody. So that's automatic. If he falls to me there, automatic pick for me.
Yeah. With Fournette, man, it's a double-edged sword for me. I do like him. I actually had him last season when he scored no touchdowns at all, but did see 100 targets and 76 receptions. And if you're playing PPR, that is money in the bank. So I guess the only thing that concerns me is how much of an impact Gruden coming in with Chris Thompson, who he's had over I don't know how many years at this point. How big of a hit does Fournette take in the pass game? I mean, is he just exclusively a 1-2 down back at this point? If that were to be the case, I would be much more concerned. But assuming he more or less maintains a similar role as that quote-unquote workhorse back, then yeah. I mean, and in a contract year, the motivation better be there, especially when he pulled that stunt and walked away on a team photo or whatever immature crap it was. He better bring it this season because I'm sure there are at least a few teams that got an eye on him, and it's all going to come down to what he does this coming season. So
for sure,
Uncle Lenny, tighten him up. You better go get it.
Well, hey, one thing about Chris Thompson is, I personally have him penciled into me to miss 6 games or more.
Yeah, and I didn't want to go too far into that, but I agree. I mean, when on the field and healthy, he is a great passing running back. But yeah, I mean, honestly, just thinking about it, like if I had to guess, I'd say he misses at the very least 5 games.
Yeah, and you're not going to, I mean, let's be honest, you're not going to put James Robinson or Raekwon Armstead on the field over Leonard Fournette if Chris Thompson's out. Why would you do that?
What about this narrative? Because this is another thing that does concern me. Let's say, here comes week 7 and they're 0-6 and they just decide to tank. I mean, does he even play at that point? Does he even want to play at that point?
I think if that's the case, they find a trade partner. Because
stuff like that, I hate worrying about things like that, but it's certainly within the realm of possibility. But I agree. I think more than likely someone would have to want him for.
Well, people want him already. It's just that they've invested that draft capital a few years ago, and they want a big time return for it. You see what the running back market is, right? People aren't willing to pay. So the Jaguars are asking more than teams are willing to give. But push comes to shove, we're 2 weeks from the trade deadline, and the option is get something back for Leonard Fournette or let him walk in free agency. Any GM worth their grain of salt is going to get something back for him if you're not in contention.
Yeah,
that's my opinion.
It almost makes me wonder if they're not sold on him, but they're not out on him. Maybe to them they're like, show me that again, and then we'll sign you. Maybe.
Well,
because I feel like otherwise he'd be gone already, right?
I think the issue is he was a Coughlin guy, right? He is you talk about Tom Coughlin and the way he likes to construct a team, and Leonard Fournette is that dude, right? He's the workhorse back. He's going to bruise people, wear them down, kind of similar to Derrick Henry. He might average 2 yards a carry for the first 3 quarters, but then in the fourth quarter, everyone's tired of tackling him and he just starts breaking runs off. Leonard Fournette's kind of the same way. And that fits Coughlin well. But Jay Gruden, likes a little bit more versatility, more of a new age type of back, especially in the passing game where, let's be honest, that's not Fournette's strong suit.
It might be
compared to the
last
way he runs the ball. I mean, I agree. Last year
That
he
was
showed that he's
impressive.
no slouch in the passing
That
game.
was extreme. Like I never in a million years would have imagined him getting 100 targets,
Yeah, it's
let
absurd.
alone caught 76 of them. That is tremendous.
75% catch rate, man. I'll take it.
Whew.
But yeah, that's where I'm at on Fournette. Like I don't think he's a Jag next year, but we're talking about redraft, and
Yeah.
even for dynasty, he's 25. Somebody wants him. I promise. Somebody wants him.
I agree. And
Maybe
it
he goes
seems
to the
like
Broncos. They only signed Gordon for a year.
there's a lot of potential landing spots, in my opinion. I'm not going to get into all that in this episode, but, I remember once upon a time, even for the running back position, it was age 30.
Yep.
That was when it was like, okay, now we need to
Now it's
tread
like
cautiously.
32.
And it's like crept all the way up to 25, 20. Like they're treating Marlon Mack like he's 32 and he's 24. And it's wild. It's wild these days.
What it is it's analytics catching up to the NFL, because analytics tell you that very few running backs are worth what they get paid in their second contract. That's why teams are hesitant to pay these big multi-year big-time contracts, because analytics say you're just not getting the value out of them, especially when you can draft some dude in the third round who will give you 80% of the production for, a quarter of that cost.
That's
what it
so
comes down to.
true. I mean, just look at what Christian McCaffrey did last season, and then look at what the Panthers did as a team. It's true. It's sad, but true. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you have any children out there who are interested in playing or currently playing football, I strongly advise do not allow them to play the running back position.
Honestly, teach them to punt the ball, man.
Hey, I was the punter in high school. I played safety as well, but
man,
being an NFL punter would be like, field goal kickers have that tremendous pressure, but a punter, hey, I'm gonna sky at a good 47 to 55 yards every time. Go chill,
dude.
Go collect maybe a solid $1 million.
That first guy to be able to kick a 60-yard field goal and boom 60-yard punts, can do both, save a roster spot, he's gonna get paid. That's my opinion.
Yeah. I was one of those weird individuals that for whatever reason, don't know if it was just a mental thing, but I legit would take my shoe off and punt with my shoe off in games and then put it back on real. Yeah. I don't know, man. It was weird, but
that is weird.
For some reason, when I took my shoe off, launching balls.
All right.
I stuck with it. Just saying.
I did some punting too, but usually with my shoe on. So,
hey, should have tried it with the shoe off, bro. All it took was one try, and that ball be jumping.
I'll have to take your word for that one.
Yeah.
But those are our picks for the Jags, right? Gardner Minshew, Leonard Fournette. Let's talk about my team, the Houston Texans. There's a couple options on this roster. I'm going to go with a guy that I've liked since he came into the league. I don't think he's ever been used correctly. Maybe we'll see a little bit of correction on that this year. But my guy's Duke Johnson, right? So the second half of the Johnson and Johnson duo in the backfield. I don't think there's a ton to say here, right? So David Johnson is, the lead back, or all projections are.
Well, they're paying him as the lead back.
That's the truth.
I'm
not a believer. I'll say it. I don't believe in David Johnson any longer. First of all, he was converted to running back, so he's never been the best inside runner. His real fantasy value, his real tactical value has been his speed and his pass catching ability and his ability in space. Are the Texans going to do that with him? I don't know. That's also Duke Johnson's ability. The difference is Duke Johnson is also a good inside runner. He's the all-time leading rusher at the University of Miami that saw greats like Willis McGahee, Frank Gore, Edgerrin James, I mean, the list goes on. Duke Johnson is the all-time leading rusher. Okay?
Yeah, he was a beast in college too. I remember that dude was 3 down back. Like I never would have imagined him turning into what everyone calls this 3rd down change of pace guy that no one really uses as.
I don't get it.
It's so strange. I don't even know what to think of it.
Because when he's given handoffs and he does well. He averages about 5 yards a carry.
Yeah, he sure
I'll
does.
take that every time. Now, the volume has been low. He's been a victim of circumstance. But even still, he finished RB29 last year, and he scored 5 touchdowns. If you're telling me that you're able to draft a guy this late, and he's still going to score 5 touchdowns for you and be a lock for 60 targets, I will take that all day, especially because I just told you I don't believe in David Johnson. I'm not certain that he's going to stay healthy. And as a Texans fan, I'll tell you, our running back depth is not great outside of those 2 guys. If David Johnson goes down, it's probably going to be a committee, but I see Duke Johnson being the lead back in that committee. Again, he's got a 3-down skill set. He's at least going to get 60 targets. Why not 5 TDs again? I expect him to get more carries this year because I don't believe in David Johnson. Even if he stays healthy, from what I saw from him last year, like I was already kind of like, I don't know about David Johnson. Maybe he had a great year and he's kind of like, a 1 or 2 year wonder. And then I saw him, last year, granted he's coming back from a back injury, but man, he looked like he was running in mud. Maybe he looks better this year. I think you're on mute, Patrick.
Yeah, that one play that everyone saw where he's just running in place and getting nowhere. I don't.
It doesn't inspire confidence.
It was painful.
Yeah. So maybe as a Texans fan, I hope that I'm wrong and we see that David Johnson, who is a number 1 fantasy RB from a few years ago. I'm not banking on it. So I think Duke Johnson gets the most run in his entire career this year. You heard it here first.
Heard it here.
So Duke Johnson, go get him.
That's interesting, and that's not a bad take. Like, I'll be honest, Duke Johnson just didn't even come to my mind when I thought about the Houston Texans, and that just goes to show they traded for the guy and then just like don't use him. He's just I don't know. I don't get it.
I think he was the best running back on the roster last year. I think he's the best running back on the roster this year, but I don't know, man. He's a victim of circumstance.
Hashtag fire Bob going because this man has destroyed the Texans.
I don't know, man. At the very least, hashtag free Duke.
I like that. I will say that I seem to be higher on David Johnson than most people are.
I'm lower, so
I'm expecting him, as far as production is concerned in fantasy, I'm expecting him to have a very similar season to what Todd Gurley did last season. It was nothing exciting. No one honestly even really noticed, but at the end of the year, he was, solid, high, mid RB2, but solid as your second running back. I'm hoping that's what happens. I think it'll happen. Will it happen? We'll find out. I do like Duke, though. Again, I completely forgot about the guy because they don't use him. And I don't know what's going on over there at this point.
When he was in Cleveland, like that was the excuse, right? It's Cleveland. I don't know now.
Well, this Bill O'Brien character, I tell you what, how this man still has a job, it's got to be all just on luck. Because I feel like somehow, some way, with all the stupid things and moves he's done, they somehow as a team just compete every season. It's so surprising. It's like, man, if all these major mistakes had not happened,
where would they be?
Where would the Texans be right now? And I hate thinking about it, but seriously, like, my goodness. We'll find out. We'll find out sooner than later, but I like that you brought up Duke because he was just completely forgotten. Speaking for me personally anyway, I loved him coming out of college. He just seemed to never really get any type of fantasy relevant role with any teams.
Victim of circumstance, man.
Yeah, and he's not a young buck at this point, but
he's 27.
26?
Let's take a look.
About to turn 27.
Yeah.
So, yeah, his window is starting to slowly close as well. I mean, still young enough, especially with how limited his touches have been, but it's just so strange that during these prime years of his career,
nobody wants to use him.
And when they do, the play calling is you call plays based on players' strengths. I've never been a coach. I've played in high school and I watch sports. But you come up with different play calling schemes to take advantage of your skill players' athleticism or where they excel at specifically. And with a guy like Duke, who has, very specific areas as an athlete where he excels, they just don't tap into it at all. It just goes wasted. We got to move on, man. That's sad.
I could talk about it all day.
I can only imagine. It hurts my heart, but, rooting for the Texans and being a diehard fan like you, it's very, very different. So I can only imagine. Just stay strong.
Should have worn my David Carr jersey for this episode.
Yeah, but this O'Brien character, man, it may be too late, unfortunately.
Dude,
but
he not only has kept one job, but now he has two. He's our GM and our head coach. So, I could talk about Bill O'Brien all day.
And makes me think of some conspiracy theory type stuff with that. How does this guy have two jobs and he's crap at both?
I never thought as a Texans fan I'd say that I miss Rick Smith, but I miss Rick Smith.
He didn't stand out as a coach to me, but ever since he took on this joint coach GM, things have just been terrible. And
I'll tell you when I was out on Bill O'Brien is when he refused to give Deshaun Watson reps in camp because he had already made up his mind that Tom Savage was going to be the starter for the year. And we got two games into the season. And it was like, okay, Tom Savage
right.
He's not good. So we put Deshaun Watson in, and it's like, oh shit, we had this talent that we drafted. Go figure. That's what did it for me on Bill O'Brien. Ever since then, I've been out.
I don't blame you one bit, man. Stay strong, Dustin. Better days are ahead. But until then, let's hope that his streak of luck continues because he's been quite lucky, in my opinion. But
Deshaun Watson's good.
Oh, hell yeah, he is. That's the biggest reason that they have a chance to win each and every game is they have him at quarterback. So I agree with that for sure.
100%.
So my breakout candidate, Houston Texans, real easy for me. I've grabbed this guy up in so many drafts already. Brandin Cooks. His ADP is starting to climb. We did notice that. He's gotten all the way up to wide receiver 36, but saying that all the way up to wide receiver 36 is still just what a bargain.
Yeah.
You know, this whole thing about him just being injury prone. The guy has missed 2 games in his 6-year NFL career due to injury. He's missed 2. Yes, he has a history of concussions. There are countless other players playing in the NFL with as many, possibly more concussions. So, yeah, I mean, you know, if it's a situation where you feel he and another player are just equally talented, they're projected equally as far as, you know, from a fantasy perspective based on your scoring, maybe you make that the tiebreaker and go with the guy that doesn't have the history. I'd be behind that all the way. But did people forget what Brandin Cooks has done as an NFL receiver?
Yes, they did.
Apparently so. So first of all, and we've touched on it, but just to hit it again, DeAndre Hopkins is gone. All of those targets are just up for grabs. And I think it's very safe to say that Brandin Cooks is absolutely the most proven wide receiver on the team.
I mean, he's a perennial 1,000-yard guy.
And I'll say it, I think most would agree, but I don't know. I see Will Fuller get drafted before him and draft after draft after draft. I don't get it.
I mean,
but
I
to
get
me,
it.
he's the most talented as well. He's not only the most proven, but the most talented. And Deshaun Watson is going to be throwing the ball to him. We got something here. So prior to last season, yes, last season was bad for those that, you know, had shares of Cooks last year. It was rough. It was, you know, it happens. This is football, ladies and gentlemen. It happens. But, you know, you can't just completely throw a guy that, I mean, he went 4 consecutive seasons with over 1,000 receiving yards. 3 of those seasons were with 3 different teams.
Yeah.
Who else has done that?
I would put money down right now that that's the only time in NFL history that a guy has switched teams like that and continued to get 1,000 yards receiving
Consecutively.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that it's been done either. We'll have to double check on that after this because I just can't imagine. But that's mind-blowing because you're not only going into a new system, you got to develop new chemistry with a new quarterback.
New terminology.
Time and time again, you know,
Yeah.
big-name receivers, you know, like Jarvis Landry and even Odell Beckham, their first year in Cleveland, not the best. There's others, but we won't get into that. This guy just – and I don't understand why teams don't want him. Like, why has he played for so many teams yet 4 consecutive seasons over 1,000 receiving yards? It's really weird. So Deshaun Watson. This is what I really like for Brandin Cooks' outlook is Deshaun Watson, not only is he an elite passer, yes, an elite passer, his mobility will absolutely buy Cooks time to use his speed to get open. And I'll absolutely acknowledge they have other guys with speed, but going back to what I said previously, Cooks is the most proven and the most talented. I can't think of a single reason he's not Deshaun Watson's number 1 target. And assuming he stays healthy and plays most of the season, hopefully all of the season, I see a lock for another 1,000-yard receiving season. And when you're getting a guy late ninth. And ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't been paying attention, he's come up a ton. I mean, he's come up like at one point. What did you say you saw him at, Dustin? He's come up quite a bit, since June 1st over the
I
past
already
month.
erased it, but yeah, he was like
He's
wide
come up
receiver 50 or something.
Yeah, he's come up approximately 20 spots when it comes to the wide receiver position, which, it's a double-edged sword. I like people like recognizing like, wait a minute, this is a mistake. But then I'm like, oh no, now I got to draft him even higher. I just missed out on him in the most recent draft that you and I were involved in because I've constantly been just every single draft, ninth round, Brandin Cooks. Someone got smart and they scooped him up in the 8th. So props to whoever that was. But yeah, I mean, proven track record, team proof, quarterback proof. He has one down year and he just falls off the map. Nah.
Yeah.
Nah. Take him at the value. You'll thank me that you did.
Yeah, he was actually going to be my pick. I at the last second decided to go to Duke Johnson. But I agree with you. He's pretty much for me a lock for 1,000 yards. The Texans don't have any receiver that is who you would consider an alpha dog, demands double coverage, that type of thing. But their speed at wide receiver, going down to, wide receiver 5, 6. Like, let me just list some of their receivers right now. We're talking Brandin Cooks, Will Fuller, Kenny Stills, Randall Cobb, Kiki Cutie. Those guys are all running like 4.4, sub 4.4 40s. I'm fairly certain 4.45 maybe. They're fast.
4.33.
4.3. Yeah, I mean, dude, they're fast.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, like Bill O'Brien, we've seen what can happen when Will Fuller is healthy and how that affects the rest of the offense. But now, if Will Fuller goes down like he has every season, the next dude can step in there, next man up, and be just as fast. Maybe not just as fast. I think Fuller might be the fastest dude on the roster, but still.
Ooh, so close. So Cooks 4.33, Fuller 4.32.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying.
Doesn't get closer than that.
They're fast as heck. The fastest wide receiver core from top to bottom, I would put money on in the league. And speed kills. O'Brien saw what it did to him when he played the Chiefs. He's always kind of coveted that, but now he's got more than just one guy who can step in and are proven, right? So Cobb, nothing to write home about. Don't sleep on his speed. Stills always been known as kind of a faster dude. He's produced everywhere he's been. The Texans wide receiver core might be a roulette this year of who has the big game. So it might be difficult for fantasy, in my opinion, but I do expect 1,000 yards from Cook. And I expect the wide receiver core as a whole to be healthy for fantasy. It just might be difficult to figure out who's going to eat each week. That's kind of how I've looked at it. But I like Brandin Cooks a lot, man.
Yeah, and man, if Lord willing, we could just see a full season of Will Fuller, I'd be a happy man.
Me too.
You just heard, I mean, when it comes to speed, Cooks and Fuller practically identical. There are a couple of areas that Cooks just blows Fuller out of the water at, and that's going to be agility and catch radius, which is why I think there's just absolutely no chance that Will Fuller somehow emerges as an alpha wide receiver when Cooks is on the roster.
Yeah, there's no doubt in my mind that of the talent they have on that roster, Cooks is the top dog for sure. I think where it gets close is like the second. Honestly, though, Will Fuller probably has a pretty tight stranglehold on the wide receiver too. I think where it gets really interesting is wide receiver 3, because does Kiki Cutie take a step forward and we see some more production like he had in his rookie year? If so,
That'd be
he might.
nice.
It would. If that happens, he might be able to beat out Cobb or Stills. But at the very least, like,
Why not just put Duke in that slot spot? That'd be that Bill O'Brien. If somehow, some way you're hearing or seeing this, your team will be better. Duke Johnson is playing the slot this year. Come on, Bob.
stamp it.
But yep, Houston Texans could be a roller coaster of a season. But I tell you what, if they collectively stay healthy,
Especially on defense. Ugh.
they could surprise some people. Because everyone just seems to be so down on not only David Johnson, but Brandin Cooks. And I still can't get over why I keep seeing Will Fuller get drafted like 2 or 3 rounds before Brandin Cooks. But it's the last time. If I see it again, I might go crazy.
Last thing on the Texans, watch out for that tight end group. They got 4 guys that can produce, and it might not be one guy getting all the catches, but let's go 3 tight ends and then run a bunch of pass routes. And I would not be surprised if the tight end group has like 8 touchdowns next year.
Yeah, I agree. And, just looking at their depth chart at that tight end position, this is probably a big year for all 4 of the tight ends that are currently listed there, as far as moving forward. Because they do have a couple of young guys that, haven't proven anything yet, but they're showing some upside, and I'm real anxious to see if one of them hits. Because if they do, that's going to be huge for the team for sure. But even just the rotation of Atkins and Fells.
Yeah, they've got Fells, Akins. Honestly, I think Thomas is just as good as Akins, and then we haven't seen what Warren can do yet. So
I like Warren a lot. I need to see it, but
yeah, same.
Man, some upside there. But yeah, they have a nice depth chart there at tight end. So that's even though it goes under the radar, just because there's not one tight end that gets all the production there. They're pretty solid there. So again, the range of outcomes for the Texans, it's pretty wide.
Yeah.
It's pretty wide. So
could be a terrible season. It could be a great one.
I'd be excited to see what happens. But Houston Texans. So moving right along, we're going to jump over to the Tennessee Titans. And my breakout candidate, Jonnu Smith.
Did you see that picture of him today? Or yesterday? His workout? Whew, yeah. Good Lord.
Yeah, beast. So I double-checked this today, and he's going as a late 11th pick, tight end 17. So remember that. He's being picked as the 17th tight end off the board. All right. Now, let's talk a little bit more about Jonnu. Workout metrics. Y'all know I'm big on that. It's not the, live by, die by, but
it's really important for tight ends, though.
It's just it helps you understand how much upside a player has, and that's going to help you understand at what point in the draft does it make sense to draft them. But let's just look at it real quick. So Jonnu Smith, 40-yard dash, 88th percentile. Speed score, 84th percentile. Burst score, 94th percentile. College dominator, 92nd percentile. Breakout age, 100 percentile. And the spark, I'm sure at least some of y'all have heard of the spark, and I think they even added an X at the end. And I think Nike actually created that, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Nike Spark Score.
Look it up. Again, I don't want to keep re-explaining what all these are. But for Spark, Jonnu Smith, 93rd percentile. So all of that is just like, just my eyes are open. You got my attention. So in 2019, let's look at some specific stat categories and where Smith finished the season among the rest of the tight ends in the league. Yards per pass route, 11th. Yards per reception, 8th. Yards per target, number 2 overall at the tight end position. Catch rate, number 4. Target separation, number 2. Fantasy points per pass route, number 10. And last but not least, ladies and gentlemen, fantasy points per target. He was number 3 overall at the tight end position. He's being drafted as the 17th tight end. Wow. So the only other thing I'm really going to touch on with Jonnu Smith, he's still very young. He'll actually turn 25 towards the end of August. So
that's young for a tight end.
Certainly in his prime or possibly entering his prime.
Entering for sure.
I mean, who knows how good he really is. Opposing defenses, their primary focus is absolutely going to have to be on stopping Derrick Henry. And then even beyond that, when it comes to the pass game, that secondary focus is going to be on A.J. Brown. And that leaves Jonnu Smith, a guy who showed last season that he can produce at a high level. He's going to be the forgotten guy on that offense. It just gives him significant opportunity to produce once again at a high, if not an elite level. And considering he's the 17th tight end off the board, I think he's going to be a top 12 tight end this year personally, because I think teams are probably going to be a little more prepared for that run game. And while I do love A.J. Brown, that's going to be the number one focus, as far as who to stop when they pass. And then Jonnu Smith's just over here hanging out by himself. The stats are going to pile up. This is an easy one. Don't sleep on Jonnu. Go get him. Breakout's coming.
Yeah, you brought up some good points, and I 100% agree with you. Not only because I'm the tight end guy, but, just looking at this roster, this is the guy that pops off of it for you. So you talked a lot about, his athletic ability. One thing I didn't hear you talk about, I don't think, unless I missed it, was his catch radius. So he's 82nd percentile in catch radius too. He's 6'3", 250. But as you talked about, the dude can move. So when I was kind of looking at doing some, research for Jonnu, you touched on this a little bit. So he had over a 70% catch rate and 8 or more yards a target. He's only one of 7 tight ends to do that last year. I think
somehow
you said
it just went unnoticed.
Well,
crazy.
But the reason it went unnoticed is you touched on that too. Is the focus was on Derrick Henry, and then Mariota got benched and Ryan Tannehill came in. So unless you're me, you don't give love to tight ends, right? So Tannehill got the love, Henry got the love, A.J. Brown got the love, but in reality, that entire offense broke out as soon as Mariota was benched.
True that.
Another reason is he was behind Delanie Walker all the way up until week 7. So it took Delanie Walker getting hurt in the first half of week 7 for Jonnu's snap percentage to go up.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah, so he didn't get the
right. Like to the start of the season, I mean, I'm sure he found playing time, but as far as like
opportunity wasn't there,
being targeted or possibly being running routes, I probably very minimal. But yeah, I forgot all about that. You're absolutely correct.
Yep. So I think that was a big reason too, because he got off obviously to an extremely slow start, 7 weeks in before he saw any type of production opportunity really. But, you talked about it. He's uber athletic. And I expect, obviously, with a whole extra 7 weeks as the starter, obviously we're talking about an increase in opportunity, right? And I've talked about it before. I'm not typically the type of person to pick one of the top tier tight ends. I just feel like there's other value at other positions, and unless you get the top three, you've got a guy, right?
And
So
it's
I
so
typically
deep
wait.
this year too. Yeah.
And so this guy, I already talked about Jack Doyle, but if I'm at the end of drafts and I haven't addressed tight end yet, I have no problem going Jonnu, Jack Doyle with back-to-back picks, because not only am I drafting upside with both of them, but Doyle, in my opinion, is going to provide me a floor, a safe weekly floor, right? So if I'm really feeling shady about it, I'll put Doyle in there, and I know, I'm probably going to get him, 5 points if I get 15. Woohoo! But then, if I find out, oh, dang, Jonnu Smith is just being really efficient again, and this play action, everyone's focused on A.J. Brown. Not only is Jonnu Smith, got this huge catch radius. By the way, there's some amazing catches that he made last year floating around on
Yeah.
Twitter. Check some of those out.
That there really were. There was, yeah. I'm
But
glad you mentioned that.
what really stuck out to me, though, and kind of looking at some of his highlights and big plays from last year, was his ability to break tackles and get yards after the catch. Because he's not the most agile person, but when you're 6'3", 250, a little bit of agility goes a long way. But he's really fast, right? So he breaks that tackle.
Yeah, very, very athletic.
Yeah, so he breaks that tackle, and then he's got a head of steam on him, and then he's big, so he's tough to tackle. I just see him as I just see him as a much bigger mismatch than someone like. Don't get me wrong, AJ Brown is very athletic in his own right, but when you're talking about putting a linebacker or a safety on Jonnu Smith, I see that as much more of a mismatch. So I'm right there with you, dude. For me, Jonnu Smith is the dude on the Titans who has the most potential to outperform his ADP right now. 100%.
Easy. Lock it in.
That one is real easy for sure. Man, I think that wraps us up there.
That sure does, man. I just feel like we've been flying through these. Just want to let everyone know that we've certainly done our due diligence and taken some time to, get our research in, look at things from a few different perspectives, and then record the episode, because we don't want to just pump out videos each and every day and, practically recycle what we've already said 2 or 3. We want to bring quality and bring stats that matter and absolutely need to be and should be considered when it comes to drafting a fantasy team. We're going to pivot on over to our final AFC breakout candidate episode with the West. So stay tuned for that. Looking forward to what we come up with once we conclude the breakout series. As I mentioned in a previous video, we're really pushing to get some more interaction. We really want to open up the communication channels with everyone across the fantasy community. So leave us a comment. If you leave us a comment, tell us, more or less, just tell us what you want to see or what subject or who you want us to talk about in an upcoming episode. Not only will we start working on that immediately, but we will give you the option to join us during the recording of that episode and contribute yourself. So if you stuck with us this long, if you haven't already, smash the thumbs up, make sure you're subscribed, leave us that comment, and stay tuned, because we'll be right back with y'all, Fantasy Philosophers. Peace, everybody.
Later.